Hello, this is Tom Corley, your host of Meet the Music. I am truly excited about our guest for this episode. He has these accolades that just a list of accolades of his professional career. So I won't hold you to that, but what you can do is go to his website, DekeSharon.com, and you will be able to see all of that there. The thing that I'm most impressed about is the titles and all of the hats that he wears. Let me run down a quick little list that I was able to decipher from the internet. Arranger, author, coach, educator, founder, guru, performer, producer, director, the father of contemporary a cappella, and I'm going to throw in there YouTuber because
My kids would like that. My kids, yeah. I just took a big popular spike up with YouTuber after my name.
But the one that I really want to tag on in the front, ambassador. He is the person that if you mention a cappella, you don't think about Bobby McFerrin. You don't think about Boys to Men. You think about Deke Sharon. He's an author, as I mentioned. He has 6 books, teaching music through performance and contemporary a cappella arranging, a cappella, the heart and vocal harmony. So you want to sing a cappella warm-ups for pop and jazz choirs. I mean, movies, TV, Broadway, live productions, concerts. My friend, Deke Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here, and thank you for your kind words.
Yeah. So I guess let's start with some scandal.
Let's do it.
The question I have to start off, and I'm wondering if everyone is wondering this. Some people may know the answer already, but I was unable to uncover it.
Okay.
Do you actually play a physical instrument?
I do, in fact, play multiple instruments. I've played piano since I was young, and I taught myself guitar in high school, played a little bass, and, we all learned recorder in the 4th grade. But bottom line, voice is and always has been my primary instrument. And I love singing, not just the melody, but even more the harmonies and all the crazy notes in the background and sounding like instruments and doing all that kind of stuff. So a cappella is obviously where I ended up.
Yeah. I mean, so can you, for somebody who's not familiar with this genre, can you give us a little brief history?
Sure. Well, the definition of prehistoric times is that nothing was written down back then, right? Prehistory, before anything was written. However, I think it goes without saying that the earliest and the first music ever created by humans was vocal music. If you look at birds and crickets and whales, so many creatures in the animal kingdom communicate, and they communicate through song. They sing for each other. And so humans obviously sang for each other and sang together, as so many different creatures do. And once we get into history and you find the history of music, of course, a number of instruments get invented and different traditions spring up all around the globe. But at the core and at the heart of these different traditions, you find a cappella. And you find them in work songs, you find them in folk songs, you find them in gatherings. Many, if not most, religious ceremonies around the world have some kind of vocal music and vocal harmony as a part of it because it's such a powerful spiritual experience, the connection of people through their voices. And then there are all the work songs, the sea shanties, right? And the field hollers that ended up being a big part of human culture, not just in America, but around the world. And then if you look at written music, our 5-line staff, the music notation that everybody uses was created to notate Gregorian chant, which was sacred a cappella back in the year 1000 by Guido d'Arezzo. Any place you go around the globe, they have a tradition of a cappella music. And any time period you look into, you will find a cappella and contemporary a cappella for the time. If you go back 100 years ago in America, contemporary a cappella was what we now call barbershop. You go back 50 years ago and it was doo-wop, right? And then there were the Forever Plaid, the 4 guys, who sang the close harmony. We call that close harmony singing. A lot of that was a cappella, et cetera, et cetera. Madrigals in the Renaissance and so on and so forth. So there is a cappella up, down, sideways, and throughout American history and world history.
Well, great, great. So, as you mentioned, it is being part of the popular culture. Uh, when do you think it kind of took that upward trajectory? Um, is it when we decided to blend with pop?
I'd have to say, having lived through the past 53 years, as I recently turned 53 years old, um, a cappella and vocal singing in general, people singing at all, frankly, dropped off as soon as recorded music came around. So people don't know this, but John Philip Sousa, the very famous march writer, wrote Stars and Stripes Forever and all those great, marching band pieces.
Mhm.
He actually decried the creation of recorded music, and he said this is going to ruin music. And so many people laughed at him and said, "Oh, you Luddite, you don't understand. This is going to bring music everywhere, and it's going to create music that we can listen to wherever we go." And he said, "Right, but we won't be the ones making that music." And he was exactly correct. And if you look at old novels, classic novels, people after they have dinner, they retire to the parlor, they would sing together. Everybody, a well educated gentleman or a lady would definitely sing and play instruments. And all the way down through culture, you've got your upper, middle, lower class, whatever. There was music at a part of it. If you wanted Christmas carols, you made Christmas carols, right? And if there's a big 4th of July celebration, everybody got together in the town square and they sang patriotic songs together. Wherever you went to college, you knew the school song, the alma mater, you knew the fight song, your fraternity or sorority had songs. Companies like Ford Motor Company or whatever vacuum cleaner company, they had their own company songs. Everybody sang. And then over the past 100 years, with recorded music in ascendance, music education has gone down and down and down in schools to now you ask the majority of people and they say they're tone deaf. They're not tone deaf. A tone deaf person talks like this with one pitch because they can't differentiate up and down, right? This is like
Right,
Oliver Sacks material. Well, there are only
right,
a
right,
few people who are tone deaf. If someone says to you, "I'm tone deaf," you can say, "No, you're not," right?
right.
Like they hear tone, they're just not as experienced at matching pitch. And the bottom line is, if you didn't pick up a basketball very often, you'd be terrible at shooting free throws. And if the only people you watch shoot free throws were on the Golden State Warriors, my local basketball team, then you would think that you're horrible at it. But it's just that you're not experienced at it. If you can speak, you can sing. And so what happened, particularly when we got out of like the nice rich vocal harmonies out of the doo-wop era, as we moved into the 60s and into the 70s, vocal harmony and a cappella wasn't cool anymore. Then we got into the 80s and we had a lot of synthesizers, right? Computers started taking over music and it got more and more synthesized. Then, as I started the Contemporary A Cappella Society of America in the 1990s and started to spread this new style of a cappella that involved using your voice as instruments and more layers and more vocal percussion and beatboxing, more people started to be drawn towards a cappella and vocal music again, I think in part as a backlash against the robotic sound of current popular music. And then we were able to popularize what we're doing with TV shows like The Sing Off and the movies, the Pitch Perfect movies, In Transit on Broadway. And then groups like Pentatonics just exploded into the popular limelight. And now my life's work, which was to spread harmony through harmony, is so much easier because the word a cappella is a household word. I guarantee you when I graduated college in 1991, most people had no idea what the word a cappella meant. And those who did thought it was classical choral music, or maybe they knew about barbershop or something like that. But now a cappella is everywhere. And so we're bringing community singing back into people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned harmony to harmony. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Well, look, it's not a shocker or a surprise to anybody who picks up a newspaper or reads some kind of political blog or whatever. Our country is the most divided it's been in the past 150 years. And one of the things that's really divided people is that people don't have this sense of connection to their neighborhood, to their community, to their local friends. At the end of a long day, people go and they plop down in front of a screen. Maybe they're watching TV, or maybe they go on the internet and they just start typing back and forth angrily on Facebook. And people change jobs all the time. There's not that sense of security where you go to and you work in a company for 30 years, right? So people
Right.
don't have that same sense of connection to others. The thing that brings that better than anything else is singing. Now, I don't know if you know this, but singing in a choir of some kind, be it church choir, community choir, whatever style of music you like, That is America's #1 recreational activity. More people do that than any other non-work hobby activity across the country. And the numbers are even higher in other countries. So people sing together. And the thing you will find from somebody that sings in a vocal harmony group is they are, by definition, better at getting along with other people because they understand they need each other, right? And it's not about you. When you sing in a vocal harmony group, even if you're just in a quintet or a quartet, you're not singing the melody all the time, right? You are backing up other people more than you are out front. And so you understand that connection. You need high voices, you need low voices. You want people who have that boy choir sound, you want people who have that gospel sound. The more difference you have, the more diversity you have in your vocal harmony group, the more your group can do. And so there's no better teacher of the value of interpersonal harmony and the value of people who are different from you than the experience of singing harmony together. So my life's work, Harmony Through Harmony, is to actually spread more interpersonal, more cultural, more community harmony by getting more people singing together. And I'll give you a little anecdote. I know I like to run at the mouth with these things, but when I joined my college a cappella group, the people in this group, there was a frat boy, there was a guy who was in computer science, you had your chemistry nerd, you had your jocks, you had people who didn't even want to be in school. And here I am like Mr. Artsy hanging out with the theater crowd and the music nerds. I'm telling you, I wouldn't have been friends with a lot of these people. I wouldn't have even crossed paths with them. But all of us got in this a cappella group together and we became fast friends. And it became really clear how much we needed each other. And the end result of all of this is that we are still super close and do friendly Zoom calls once a month and keep in touch with each other. And I have a wider range of friends and a much more diverse cadre than I think most people do because of vocal harmony.
That's interesting because you made the connection. I watched your presentation on Google Talks. And I saw that, and I was like, "Wow, he's connecting the dots here with the work environment and the after work environment, and how they all intertwine. If that small niche of people and the employer get a connection going, they build a small community outside of work, and that makes them better employees."
And it makes them better people. Yeah. Here's the thing: people who are liberal might be more likely to go into the arts. People who are conservative might be more likely to go into law or policing or something like this. But in the end of the day, if you join a community choir, you're going to get some people who are politicians. You're going to get this person who works in the local theater, right? And they're going to become friends. And they're going to stand next to each other on the risers, and they both sing tenor, right? And they're going to find out a little bit more about each other's kids. And they're going to find out a little bit more about each other's lives. And they're going to learn that they have far more in common than these little differences about how they think the country should be run. And more importantly, they're going to learn that all they want is what's best for this country. So you think blue is a little better, I think red's a little better, or vice versa. That isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is that we are Americans, right? And in our case, we're Californians, or, I live in San Francisco, we're San Franciscans, and we're all working together to make the world a better place. And we will disagree, and that is okay. But ultimately, in the end, we'll all pull in the same direction to make the world a better place.
Right, right.
And that's really what vocal harmony is about. You're all pulling in the same direction to create something better than you could do individually. And that's why it's such a powerful tool.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. And that's what my platform, I'm trying to propagate the music just in general, because if you find yourself listening to one genre, your life is going to be boring.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, you gotta treat it like it's food and do something with your taste buds to excite you. And so I guess for ourselves, for the United States, let me back up for a second. You mentioned in college, you said that it kind of wasn't very popular to be a part of a group. And then all of a sudden it got explosion from, I think I read that you said it was like 200 schools. Now it's like 3,000 schools.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So was that all pre Pitch Perfect and pre sing-offs?
Yeah, a lot of it grew beforehand. And in fact, the Sing Off and Pitch Perfect were in reaction to the fact that it had been exploding on college campuses. But then once those major media vehicles were out there, it only further grew. It only continued. I'd say, if I have to put a pin in the map, I'd say we had about 2,000 a cappella groups before Sing Off Pitch Perfect, and now we have 3,000. So it already was a significant thing, even if it was only 1,500. It was a big deal because it's such a great activity. Most of the groups that exist now are mixed, what people used to call co-ed. Back in the day, they were all male or they were all female. But either way, if you think about it as a social organization in a lot of ways, like a fraternity or a sorority, but you have a purpose, you have a common goal, and you get to do road trips on weekends, but you're not just driving to another campus to meet some other people. You're going there to sing, and you connect with the other singing groups, and you get to experience college life, not only from your own campus, but from a lot of other places. And here's the thing, people who aren't a part of this don't really get, although they probably saw it in the movie. The groups on a lot of campuses are more popular than the football team. Like, it's like being a rock star. And it is so much fun because most of the people in these a cappella groups, they're pre-med, they're pre-law, they're going to be computer science people, they're going to go into business or whatever. And only a couple of them are going to end up ever even thinking about some kind of a music career. But they all have music as a fundamental part of who they are and who their identity is on campus. And they keep that with them through the rest of their lives. And that love of the arts and respect for the arts, I think, is an essential part of any culture.
Yeah. So being essential for any culture, I mean, we have still have radio. Radio's still popular.
Mm-hmm.
Are there radio stations that 24/7 programming, or is it
yes
set hours? Okay.
Yeah, you can find, there's a great one out of Seattle called Acaville Radio, and so many people now listen on Spotify, so they just start jumping on different Spotify playlists, particularly during the holidays. The month of December is when everybody eats in the vocal music world and the vocal harmony world, because COVID notwithstanding in 2020. Every mall wants Dickens carolers, right? Every TV show wants groups up there singing Christmas carols and holiday songs in any style, barbershop, doo-wop, pop, vocal jazz, whatever it is. So, and almost every single a cappella group that's existed in the past 100 years, their biggest album is their Christmas album because everybody just wants it.
I just was thinking about that because I remember coming across Pentatonix bestsellers, and it was their Christmas Christmas ones. Yeah.
Pick a group, it's going to be their Christmas album, and that stands to reason. Partially because vocal harmony and the holidays go together so strongly, but also because they're perennial sellers, right? Every December, people go back to these albums and they need them again, and they need them again. They want them again. They want them again. They want them again. So the fact that people are drawn to vocal harmony music, and then these albums are out there, I mean, it's unmatched.
Hence Mariah Carey, right?
Well, that's right. I mean, and the thing is, people forget, like, everybody thinks like, oh, well, everybody knows Mariah's catalog and her unbelievable debut album, and then she did this and blah, 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 blah. In 50 years, that might be the only song anybody ever knows about from Mariah Carey. And if people are like, well, I don't know about that, I'll ask you, which Dean Martin songs do you listen to, right? which tune by any of the Rat Pack? I mean, maybe not Frank Sinatra because people know his catalog better, but
right.
Gene Autry's biggest song, like, he was a big cowboy star. His best known song of all time is going to be Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, hands down.
Yeah.
And it's just the way life works.
Yeah. And surprisingly, I didn't realize that's where John Legend started.
Oh, a lot of Sarah Bareilles as well. In fact, I met John Legend back when he was John Stevens. His group, the Penn Counterparts, had made it to the finals of the competition that's in Pitch Perfect. Back then, it was the National Championship of College a cappella. Now it's the International Championship of College a cappella. And I created this competition, and I was hosting with my group, the House Jacks. And so I met him, and I was like, great voice, really intense musician. Wow, he was all about just getting there to win the whole thing. And they didn't win. They didn't even place. But I don't think he let it slow him down. I think he did okay for himself.
Isn't it the case sometimes when people get the rejection?
Well,
in fact, you may mention of I can't. I'm drawing a blank here on the word auditioning for and you got rejected 3 times. Is that what it was?
That is right.
in
I was
college?
rejected from my college a cappella group, the Tufts Beelzebubs, 3 times, and there wasn't anything musical about it. I mean, honestly, and this is going to sound really snotty, but I was probably a better musician than every person in the room when I was auditioning. I mean, I had studied a cappella. I was collecting albums in high school. I already was an arranger. I've been singing since I was young. So it was there. I was the words they used were I was overzealous. I was just too into it. And in fact, in the movie Pitch Perfect, the nerdy guy Benji is based on me. Right. I'll let
Right.
you know. I never had any Star Wars posters, and I don't do magic tricks. But the idea that someone would be too into a group and not get in because they're like, wow, that dude's just too intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me. But it was good that I didn't get in because my spring just coiled tighter, and it just made me. I had some hard lessons to learn too, and in the end, it was actually acting like I didn't care about getting in the group. Then they let me in, and then I
Okay.
became music director and whatever. So it all worked out.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. I mean, it's when you're a snot nosed freshman, you need to be taken out a peg or two before you're ready to start climbing back up the ladder. So it was all good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what did you listen to besides a cappella groups as a young teenager in high school? What was your theme song in high school?
Ooh, I was very, very unusual. My two favorite musicians in high school were Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles. I listened to some jazz. I listened to classical music. In fact, the first album I ever asked my mom if I could buy was the Fantasia soundtrack. She didn't really play any music around the house. I didn't come from a musical family. So I had to stumble on this stuff and fall in love with Beethoven 6 on my own. I loved music from the 70s and 60s and the 40s, the swing bands. Oh, so great. Much more than the music that was really being played during the 80s when I was in high school. And I really do think it was the synthesizers and the mechanization of music that turned me off to it. The sound of drum machines, which are better now, the programmable stuff, but I love the sound of live drums. And when you hear James Brown, and the funky drummer going on underneath him, there's just nothing you can program that's that funky, right? The
Right. Right.
humanity in music is what makes it so powerful, at least for me. And that's why I'm, again, drawn to a cappella, because there's nothing more human than the human voice and its connection to the human soul.
Yeah. Now, would you do you see an evolution for a cappella?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
I
There's
mean,
been an enormous evolution over the past 100 years, for instance, and the style continues to grow. And in fact, when I built so many of the organizations and festivals and competitions that exist within a cappella, I wanted very much for the modern a cappella sound to not fall into the trap that barbershop and doo-wop did 100 years ago and 50 years ago, respectively, which is that a cappella of those eras, those became very attached to a specific genre, a specific style of music, and a specific way of singing. Um, and they're both beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I love barbershop, and I go to barbershop conventions, and I have lots of friends, and I love singing barbershop tags. It's great. And doo-wop, I mean, come on. I was born and raised on this stuff, and it's always fantastic to bust some doo-wop harmony. But I didn't want there to be this another dark ages for a cappella where people had to go through another 20, 30 years before it kind of pulled out of the nosedive. And what's happening now in the contemporary a cappella world, and the reason I even chose the word contemporary is I wanted it to always be new and fresh, is that high school groups and college groups and young 20-something groups are listening to the latest music and arranging it themselves and performing it. So the style, a cappella isn't a style. The style of contemporary a cappella is constantly morphing as popular music does, which has allowed us to only grow since the early 90s when this style really started to take off. And that's a good run. But maybe I should break that down for a second, because I know we talked about this offline before this a bit. A cappella is not a style. It's not a genre. It's a choice of instrumentation. And if you go to see a group like the Kingsingers, one of the great ensembles out there out of England, 6 men, they'll start their concert and they'll sing some Gregorian chant from the Middle Ages, right? And then they might sing some Renaissance, a motet. They'll go through and sing classical choral music and with some strange, modern, contemporary classical piece. And then they'll do a folk song and then vocal jazz or some swing and maybe some Randy Newman or Paul Simon, and then end with a current pop tune. So really what they've done is they've taken you on a journey around the world through 500 years of history using 6 voices. You cannot do that with any other 6 instruments, right? The human voice is able to transcend genre and transcend era by singing in a different way. And that's what's really exciting. Also, when you look at a group like Take 6, they've got 6 guys, right? They sing gospel repertoire. They use jazz harmonies, R&B stylings. They're blending 3 totally different elements or pieces and styles of music and creating their own unique sound. And that's another thing a cappella does really well. It pulls together all of these different styles of music to create something new and fresh and really exciting.
Now, in one of your interviews, I saw that you had mentioned some kid that may come along and capture the sounds of electronic music and incorporate that into the style.
Yeah. I do think that's going to start happening more and more. So when you think about techno music and you think about electronica and you think about DJs and acid, trip hop and all of acid jazz, like all of this music that's very technologically driven, the thing that it's lacking is that humanity. And most of those are really very kind of niche genres. And a lot of it exists specifically to be dance music, that kind of quality that permeates. And there's no disrespect towards it. Like there are lots of different kinds of great music for lots of different moods and lots of different flavors. Like when I'm cooking dinner, it's bossa nova, like you want to chill out in the evening. So it's all good. But I think that ultimately it's going to be the human voice that takes that music to the next level. And you can sample the human voice. You can cut it up, you can chop it up, you can use it in a lot of different ways. But if you think about the techno tunes that have been biggest, they've been ones with a sister riffing over the top of it, right? The CNC Music Factory sound that was back in the 90s and so on and so forth from there. The times that heavily electronic music has really broken through is when there's a person, there's a human figure, there's a voice and a heart that people can connect to. And even if you go back to Yaz, that old group from the early 80s, or think about Eurythmics is a great example, right? So much of the Eurythmic sound from Sweet Dreams onward is very synthesized based, but you got Annie Lennox singing over the top of it, and she's the star. She's the one you hang on to, and she's the one who connects all the dots and brings us into it.
Yeah, that's how I listen to it for sure. And she pulls me in.
Right.
Yeah. So now that, once we come out of this whole COVID situation, where do you see yourself jumping off first for you? The live a cappella production that got shut down?
All of it. I'll take it all. I mean, honestly, I think the performing arts are going to be the last thing to really come out of the nosedive, and it's going to be really slow. A lot of people think like, well, why doesn't the symphony hall just fill with 25% seats like it's safe for 50%? And the answer is because there aren't, 200, 400% margins on this music. It's not like these symphony orchestras were just rolling in cash and like, oh, we would have made money if only 25% of the people were in the house. Until people really start filling up auditoriums or big outdoor concerts again, until we can get people in close quarters, it's going to be really hard to make this happen. And vocal harmony singing early on, choirs and whatever. I mean, there were some studies that said this is the equivalent of, a mass spreader event because singing is really expelling air and breath, and with it, all of the little particles that you have in your lungs, long distances. I mean, Pavarotti didn't fill an opera house, by singing quietly. There was no amplification. The entire operatic style involves him, someone blasting their voice. But even in that case, you're talking about one person. You get 100 of those people on the risers, and that's a lot of sound, but that's also a lot of humanity that's being breathed outward. So we need a vaccine. We need some herd immunity and whatever for all this to really take off. But the main thing that I'm going to be doing is the main thing that I do. I love making television and movies and all that. But the thing I love most of all is going into high schools and working with young singers, going to different communities around the world. And, I had all this work canceled in Brazil and Japan and Netherlands and Belgium and Australia, where I go into places and I'll, teach a class or I'll work with a choir or a bunch of people and I'll bring them together and get them singing and inspire new people to join these choirs and hopefully change their lives and bring them into this brother and sisterhood that we have. Because once you're in it, you're not going anywhere else. You will find the joy you get from singing and from singing with others, and the camaraderie you feel is lifelong.
I'm gonna update your Wikipedia page and say Pied Piper.
I've been called that before. I've been called that.
Have you? Okay.
I have, and Johnny Appleseed too, because I go around and I plant these choirs, and then they grow up. Yeah. Oh,
So
funny.
okay, so 1918, we got past that as a country.
Yep, yeah, we did. It's coming.
We got past that.
But
the thing is that I don't know. I'm afraid that if we take too long, we may lose a whole profession. Musicians, singers. I mean, because they're going to have to survive. They got to go get a job, or I mean, what are they going to do for that 2023 time period?
Look, it's tough. And I got a lot of friends. I know a lot of people both in California and in Orlando who worked full time for Disney and then had side gigs and performances and stuff. And they laid off, oh my God, so many performers, so many singers. And they were hanging on to them. Everywhere else, they just, had to pull the ripcord early. Disney at least has these big, deep pockets. Thankfully, the a cappella group I have, Deke Cappella, is still going strong. But that's 7 people. That's not 10,000 performers, amongst the various theme parks. But they'll come back. People love it. They need it. They want it. And people are yearning, I think, for the sense of connection. And my hope and my expectation is once it really is safe, so many people are going to say, I am sick to death of Netflix. I've been sitting in front of a screen in my home. I love my family, but I got to get out of here. And they're going to rush in and start joining choirs. They're going to run to an opportunity that brings them a new set of friends and a sense of connection with their community and an opportunity to do something that is so deeply enriching. And so I think once the floodgates are open, the waters will come rushing back.
Yeah. So at that point, then, I mean, the pipeline is full of performers. Mm-hmm. How do you get seats filled when you have so much competition going on now when it comes to performances? How do you get the audience to, because it's a niche style of,
sure.
So,
sure.
I mean, what do you think is going to be, or what do you think should be? Do you think the National Endowment of Arts should just throw money at it and just make sure that everyone's, listening to Zydeco and some, especially here in America, listening to Zydeco and listening to classical and getting back to jazz concerts and.
Well, I'm with you. I do think that we, as a country, the richest nation in the history of planet Earth, should be giving more money to the arts. I don't think there's any question there. And Europe and other nations, other nations and other regions definitely spend more on the arts and do more arts funding. Thankfully, in America, we just have so many creative people who are constantly putting out great content, and with tools like YouTube and online streaming and whatever, they've been able to kind of keep it going. I think that people will always need art. They will always need the arts and humanities. I think the place where we really need to focus is in education, and particularly early education. So with or
appreciation,
schools,
like a music appreciation.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay.
When you take music classes out of schools, any arts, theater, dance, all of it, when you pull those classes out of the curriculum and you say what really matters is math and writing, you are stripping away an understanding of these fantastically important, and in many cases, American art forms and creations that breathe so much life and perspective into the human experience. And people talk about the need for more emotional education. What's more emotional than being in a theatrical production or being in a singing ensemble where you end up having to move from emotion to emotion to be able to correctly perform these pieces of music, right? And for people who say it doesn't have much, historical importance or whatever, I'm like, hello, where have you been? Like, one of America's greatest creations is jazz music, right? And our tradition of theater has moved into the movies. Like, Hollywood, come on, like, it's not like just so you throw somebody at Hollywood and then they just walk up there and they're good at acting, right? There's an entire method, the Stanislavskian tradition. And so there's much to be learned and much to be known about it. And like I said with my old college a cappella group, most of the people who end up doing it won't necessarily make a career of it, but their lives are so much richer for it. They are so much happier for it. So I think we need to make sure that we continue to have the arts as a fundamental part of all public school education. Because here's the thing, private schools still have it. They don't cut it out. They know its value. And those kids are in there, they're still excelling at math, they're still excelling at English or whatever. But for whatever reason, educators think, well, what we really need to do is get rid of the arts and spend more time on math and reading. Nobody says that with physical education. Nobody says that with PE. Kids need to run around on the recess field, right? They need to let their bodies move, but they also need to let their hearts soar. And I just think that's the way that we keep the arts alive and really prospering in the 21st century.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to our politicians. They kind of came late to the game, and I think this last stimulus, this last stimulus actually put money in it for musicians in the arts.
Oh, finally. You know, okay, so let's go back to Winston Churchill, right? We got the Battle of Britain. We have London bombed. We have the entire nation wondering if they're going to exist or be under Nazi control for the indefinite future. People are dying every single day in these horrible humanitarian disasters, right? And Winston Churchill continues to fund the arts. And somebody asked him, why are you still putting money into the arts? And he said, well, and if I don't, what are we fighting for? Right? He understood we need that as a culture. We need that as a civilization. And of course, they prevailed. And I think the arts, and Steinbeck wrote The Moon is Down and distributed it in pamphlets across Europe to help the resistance rise up. Like, our arts are our most powerful tool. And we look at, people divided, media and whatever. It's music, it's theater, it's movies. These are the tools that are going to help educate people as to how we move through these difficult moral and social dilemmas that we have and that we face and that we will face.
Right. Yeah. It's I just recently kind of started another side passionate project.
You're a busy man.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking to get a couple of more podcasts going also. But I did a Google search and I came across Every Noise, I think it's .com, everynoise.com, and it's something that Spotify had put out there. And basically on that website, there's 5,112 genres of music. Now, of course, they're all, have subgenres to them. Because one of the things I saw, and I found it to be very interesting, is every country practically had an adaptation of either hip hop, rap, jazz, whether it be Latin jazz or
of course,
and then different reggae. Russia has a reggae. I mean, so it was all of these things that were kind of blended together, and I was like, wow. So here in the United States, we have this major influence musically around the world. And I just thought that was kind of interesting, and I just picked up on that. And a lot of the stuff that I hear, I'm not bilingual, but I find the music to be fun.
Well, America's number one export is culture. Like, people think about it in terms of GDP and like, well, what products are selling and what are we manufacturing? We're manufacturing culture. We're manufacturing hope and the concepts of freedom and democracy and entrepreneurship, the concepts of diversity and sexual equality. Like, I don't think we would have people in Saudi Arabia, women and also men who are fighting on behalf of their rights, pushing against the boundary as much if they didn't see and hear what life was like in the West, right? And so the way in which I think we change the world for the better is to be better ourselves, which we're still working on. Like, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, to then use our arts to reflect that better culture and that better world. And I think it's the most powerful tool we have for social change, both here in the US and worldwide. And a side note, no doubt coming from Detroit, you know all about this. But when Berry Gordy started Motown, he started it to change white America's perception of Black America. And the elocution classes that Diana Ross had to take, and the outfits that they wore, the nice clean cut suits from the Four Tops, and the way in which they comported themselves on the air, and the popular music they were singing that started to make it onto white America's airwaves were intentionally designed not only to be awesome, not only to make him some money, but to bring America together. And he did it. The civil rights movement would not have had as strong a foundation and footing if it were not for Motown music.
Right.
So this culture that we're able to change, and we talk about the rest of the world, right? You know, Doctor, heal thyself, right? We start here. We start with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that was kind of powerful there. So, did you have an opportunity to think about your artists and your music?
Yes, I did. Yes, I
Okay,
did.
great. Because
And I
what I
got,
want to do,
yeah, go.
I'm sorry. So, yeah, what I want to do is I want to be able to have something for people to draw themselves in to your world.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you could share, I greatly appreciate it. And then, if you need to, I mean, you can always expound on why you selected that particular song.
Each one. Okay, so I did it in terms of albums, not songs. Give people a little bit of a deeper dive, and I've got
Yeah, we want them
five.
to go down the rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, we got five. I've got five classic a cappella albums from the past 100 years styles, and then I got five modern ones because I figured like there's kind of two different worlds here. So I'll move through them pretty quickly, and people pause and go searching in the internet if you need any of this. Let's start with barbershop though. Let's go back to a style of music that's from 100 years ago. My favorite barbershop group is called the Gas House Gang. They got a number of great albums, but Face the Music from the 90s, I think, really reflects who they are and how the barbershop sound of 100 years ago was brought into the modern era. Fantastic arranging, really fast, quick, brilliant, bright chords, and an unbelievable blend. And this is all pre-auto tune, so you hear this stuff and you're not going to believe it. Next up, when we're talking about the doo-wop sound moving into a more modern pop and R&B sound, you got to listen to the Persuasions, Jerry Lawson and the gang. I think Street Corner Symphony is probably the album you want to listen to. The Persuasion sound, though, there's a lot of music out there, and I was lucky enough to perform in the opening slot before the band many times, become good friends with the guys, and I loved it. Every time they were on stage, they'd say like 35 years and we still ain't got no band, and then they'd launch into another tune. You know, you gotta love them. There's so much heart and soul in that music. Now, when you're talking about a modern folk ensemble, a group that really embraces the tradition of social change and songs about the people, I don't think you can do any better than Sweet Honey in the Rock out of DC. Since the 1970s, this is a group of five women singing and then a sixth person on stage who did sign language. And you may think about that like now, like, oh, at a concert, someone doing sign language on the side. That's a modern thing. They did it in the 70s. These are progressive thinking women who were looking at social ills of the time and singing modern folk music about it. They've got a great album live at Carnegie Hall you can start with. And that will take you into them, into their ethos, into their mood, into their method. And as five progressive African-American women, much of the social change that they sang about has come to be, and yet still there's much work to be done. All right, let's move on to jazz music. And the group that Oscar Peterson founded way back in the 70s is called the Singers Unlimited. He didn't found them, but he found the group. Gene Perling and one of his buddies from the Hi-Los ended up starting this group in the early days of overdubbing in the studio. So they created these rich harmonies of their voice layered over on top of itself. And this was a new technology. And their music is gooey. It sounds, I mean, if you love the sound of the Carpenters, when Karen and her brother Richard start layering their voices on top of each other, and you're like, oh, that sounds like melted butter. That's the Singers Unlimited. That's what you want. You want that rich, beautiful, so many ballads. And you can look for their album, just the Singers Unlimited, Acapella 1, Acapella 2, Acapella 3. All of this are going to be going down the rabbit hole. And then the last one I'm going to leave you with is an unexpected choice. Many people don't realize that the pop musician Todd Rundgren in 1985 created an album that sounds much like acapella today eventually did, but he did it with very early sampling technology. The album's called Acapella, and every sound on the album is his own voice. He didn't really know how to do beatboxing or vocal percussion, but he kind of made sounds and then programmed them into a very basic drum machine. And he would sing into a keyboard and play it back as sampling. And of course, he's a fantastic songwriter, great musician, and played, quote unquote, his own voice back. But that album, Acapella from 1985, sounds like the future. And it's a great listen. All right, time for modern acapella now. If you're somebody who listens to really modern music on the radio and you want stuff that's gonna draw you in, let's start off with Pentatonics. Unless you've been under a rock, you have come across this group, and these guys are the Standard Bearers. Fantastic quintet. They came out of my TV show, the Sing Off. They won season 3, and then they.
You off. Did you see that before they? I mean, did you see that when they were going through that show?
Well, I was the music director for the show, so we helped them get together.
Did you get an inkling?
Well, you always hope. You always hope. You always cross your fingers. Did I think they would be filling stadiums, arenas 10 years later? Did I think they would have more followers on YouTube than Beyonce the way they do? Oh, hell no. No. I mean, I dreamed it, but I didn't think it. I wouldn't have put the money down in Vegas and said, oh, there's no question. These guys are going to crush Beyonce in their numbers. No. I didn't think that.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, their self-titled album from 2015 is all originals. So you may like their cover tunes, and you may hear that on the radio here and there, especially their Christmas albums are everywhere. But an album of all originals that they co-wrote with some great songwriters, just their self-titled album, Pentatonics from 2015. Check that out. Another group that came out of the Sing Off season 4, Home Free. They were doing cruise ships and stuff. And when they came into the auditions, 2 new members had Southern drawls. So we asked them, like, could you sing a country tune? And throughout the course of the show, we went and kind of figured out how to make country a cappella work. And now they play the Grand Ole Opry all the time. They've got the second most supporters on Patreon, if you know what that platform is. And their album Dive Bar Saints from 2019, really recent release. Great music, some originals, some cover tunes. If you like country music or country pop, you will love Home Free. Unbelievable singing. All right. One of the first groups to go viral, group called Straight No Chaser. These were guys in college, and 10 years after they came out of college, they posted a concert online. Their version of the 12 Days of Christmas went viral. And ever since then, these guys dropped all their day jobs and put the band back together, basically. And they tour the nation. Their album With a Twist is a non-Christmas album, and a lot of fun with a lot of different pop tunes from different eras from 2010. Another group out of the Sing Off, Street Corner Symphony. They came in second place, actually, from season 2. But their album Southern Autumn Nostalgia, which is also an all-original album from 2013, some people consider it the best a cappella album ever made. It'll just wrap your heart up and take you on an incredible journey. A couple of the guys in the group were and are professional songwriters for Warner Brothers and whatnot in Nashville. So these are like their own songs that are really personal to them. And their style of group is a little bit Creedence Clearwater Revival. You know, it's got one foot in rock, one foot in pop, one foot in country, like the Eagles or whatever. But it's American roots music, really. And then the winners of season 2 of the Sing Off, close to my heart, these guys Committed. They're a little like Take 6 if you threw a little pop in there. So they've got their gospel sound and style. And their debut album from 2011 is everything you want it to be. Butter smooth harmonies, really dense chords, but it all goes down so smooth because they've got such a great sense of style and groove. Anyway, all of those groups and albums are literally just the tip of the iceberg. And I could have listed 100 others that are just as enticing. Go on YouTube, get on Spotify, go down the rabbit hole, and I promise you, no matter what style of music you like, you will find something to love in a cappella.
And I think that was what I picked up from your list. It touched on a lot of different genres along the way, and I think that would make the transition for somebody who's not comfortable or familiar with, listening to something different.
Oh yeah.
Well, I appreciate you putting that list together. They're very
my
helpful.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. So, are you doing anything now that you said are you in schools now that your schools in San Francisco, are they in session or are they all at home?
No. California is locked down tight, and the schools in San Francisco never reopen. They've always been ultra cautious. However, I find myself on Zoom calls with educators in schools all of the time. So I'm dropping in and teaching them how to sing like a trumpet, or talking about singing with emotion, or all different aspects of vocal harmony and a cappella and whatnot. It is very frustrating because you can't sing live over the internet. There's too much lag time. We haven't figured out the speed of light and all the latency issues, but there are still choruses going on, and I'm trying to help them out. I've also got some project. I did a couple arrangements for the latest Straight Up Chaser Christmas album, which was a lot of fun. And I've got a great group with Disney called Deke Cappella, the letter D and then Cappella. And they're out there. They're all home, but they're continuing to record music and make videos and whatnot. And I look forward to being with them, getting back on the road before long. And and then everything else is little side projects and, writing music for contemporary choirs and just trying to stay creative and sane and spend time at home with my family and loved ones until we are all back out on the road again.
Right. Yeah, that is something I noticed that even with my daughter, she put out an EP this summer. And so everybody's doing their creative juices thing, by, making stuff, taking advantage of this opportunity to create.
Yeah,
so that's
you've
good.
got to.
That's good. Yeah. Because like you said, eventually we're going to come out on the other side and people are going to hunger for it.
Yes.
I know I am. I've created a bucket list.
Well, what's keeping people sane right? Nobody's talking about, the thing that's really keeping me sane is this sirloin steak. No, people need to eat. But, and nobody's saying it's this math book or whatever. The thing that's keeping people sane are the arts, right? And the joke is like everybody's streaming movies and Netflix and all this kind of stuff. People have music going all the time. They're listening to new musicians and watching videos and whatever. It is the arts that fill our hearts and give our lives meaning and keep us grounded during times of crisis, which is why Churchill was right to keep funding the arts during the Battle of Britain. And they kept that stiff upper lip, they hung in there with it. And I think it's the arts that are keeping us all together and helping us hang in there until we get past this.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Sharon, I appreciate it. You've been very insightful on a lot of things historically, personally, and musically. And I just feel so lucky that I had the opportunity to talk to you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for this fantastic conversation. Great questions and great perspective as well. I really appreciate what you're doing with this podcast, and I hope that the people who listen really will take the time, not just to listen to a cappella, but like you said, Zydeco and all these other styles of music. Go in, because you will find the different styles of music bring you into different pieces of the human experience. And just as it's fun to go to different kinds of restaurants and taste different kinds of food you've never had before, putting on those headphones and listening to a new kind of music you haven't heard, it's traveling without having to pay for a plane ticket.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Meet the Music. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and check out our YouTube channel, where we have a contextual playlist that follows every episode. Thank you for joining our musical journey.